week. And we're going to talk to you all about how to engage young people. So I'd like to kick off by acknowledging the custodians of the land on which we're meeting, the Eora people and their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who might be here with us today.
Great, thanks. So just have a quick walk through of what we're going to do today. Yeah. We're still having technical difficulties. Yeah? Oh, technical difficulties.
I'm going to roll with it today, guys.
I'll just talk you through it. That's key. Works that. So, are we there? We're there! We're going to start by building a case for engaging with young people. So, first we need to figure out why it matters and why it's important. We're going to have an interview with a real-life young person. This is Seb. He is here. And he's young. We're going to talk to you about your experiences, or you're going to talk amongst yourselves about your experiences. What challenges have you faced? What successes have you had? How did you define how you were successful? We're going to talk about some principles to engaging young people. Practicalities is not tips, because it's one thing to talk about principles, it's another to actually do it. And then we wrap up.
Cool. All right, so we've got a lot to get through today. But what we're hoping is to leave with a greater understanding of the value of engaging young people and why it should be more than just a tick box. Ideas for how to create opportunities for young people to participate, and some leading practice tools in the how-to. We're also hoping that you are more confident in advocating for including young people as part of your engagement, if that's a problem that you have. And I also really want you to be inspired by some of the amazing young people, including Seb, who are sharing their stories with us today. So, as Janine said, we're going to be working through a series of principles and hot tips today that we believe are leading practice for engaging young people. You may have noticed on the way in that we were playing Lizzo, who's amazing, when you arrived. So my first hot tip is make spaces friendly for young people. Make it relevant for them. So consider things like music, games, and basically activities that are social and fun. A big tip that's going to keep coming up during the day, and this is really what we want to be your take home, is giving space for young people to act on their own, in their own interests, and to speak up for themselves. So on that note, we're now going to throw to some young people who have been generous enough to share their opinions and experiences of participating. So we're going to throw it all to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that going to run?
It's coming, it's coming.
So young people are really great with technology. There we go.
I'm passionate about two things. One is food and the other one is community service.
I'm mainly involved in my local community through the Darwin Young Citizens Jury. We advocate for the youth of Darwin and basically just create change that we think we need to see.
I'm a 25-year-old non-binary person who works in queer advocacy and communications.
The issues that are important to me are making sure that everyone feels included and safe and understood. It's important for people to feel that way so that they can really feel like they belong, like they're just included and normal.
The issues that are most important to me are around representation, especially around the diversity of the community in media, in politics, and in general, the people that hold power.
I, as a young person, try to make my voice heard by talking as loudly as possible to as many people who will hear me. I love social media, I love blog posts and just getting out there as many ways as I can.
I like writing to lots of MPs, to the Prime Minister, just about anything that I think needs attention.
I've used my voice to make change by ensuring that the people affected most by particular issues are the ones included or leading the conversation.
It's an important part of my role to make sure that young people's voices are heard and appreciated by a wider society, and to make sure that we're listening to the voices of people that we don't usually listen to. specifically LGBTQI plus people.
And also advocating for the issue of climate change.
I'm also involved in the all of the climate strikes that have been happening, attending those, and I've been up to the Jabberong site.
I try and use my voice for change every day as best I can.
I feel like I am a part of something which is bigger than myself.
Being out in the community and attending activism events, I find is a really great way to feel empowered for me.
It's really important to me that I do this role because I think that these are two parts of society that never really get listened to, and who are also significantly marginalised in Australian society especially. So it's really important to me to make sure that we can listen to those voices and improve society, because if we improve society for the most marginalised people among us, we improve society for everyone.
Sometimes this one can be tricky, being a part of a group that I can see, see the actual change that I've made has been amazing. But beyond that, it's really hard to get to state level or federal level.
It's easy to dismiss young people as inexperienced, as innocent as not knowing what they're doing, simply because of their age.
I feel like, yes, my voice is being heard, but at the same time, I feel that I don't have the power to change, because the political drama, the people who are in power are disengaged with especially the younger generation. So I just feel like that then, what's the point if your voice is being heard but then you don't have the power to make change, right?
Well, people don't really listen to young people. They kind of always got their own opinions and their ideas, it seems, of what was going on when they were our age, and they take that as kind of as fact, like they know it all, when really a lot has changed.
I feel concerned that the issues that young people face aren't being taken seriously. It's clear that the needs and priorities of young people aren't being prioritised by government and by other institutions.
The climate strike movement, I feel like there was a lot of ridicule and a lot being said about how we should be in school and we shouldn't be striking, basically, and that really shut me down a bit, but I realized that that's kind of what we want. We want people talking about it, and we want our opinions out there.
There is a global awakening happening right now, and the younger generation is very much concerned about the planet Earth.
Even if you feel like what you're doing isn't making a difference, keep trying, keep pushing, and always keep fighting, because eventually if enough people fight for what they believe in, things change, and that's when it's really exciting.
Cool. All right, so young people, who are they? In terms of, thank you. In terms of the definition of young people, it does differ across organisations, but broadly we're referring to people who range from 12 to 25 years of age. However, this can differ. People can consider themselves as a young person for various reasons, such as levels of maturity, who their peers are, being at different developmental stages, and people will self-identify as being a young person. Something we also want to talk about is the word youth. Historically, the people that use the word youth are media and the government, and it's not used in a positive way. It's used as a stereotype, and basically it's dehumanising. So refer to young people as young people. Use youth within a couple of other contexts, but yeah, young people for people. So in terms of the room today, we're wanting to get a bit of an understanding of who we have with us. So who identifies as being a young person? Can we get a show of hands? All right, nice and high. Yep, okay. And, okay, we've got a few. And who will walk to the left-hand side of the room? Young at heart. A little bit. Yep, so old people. All right, and who is kind of kind of in the middle, who's recently kind of left the category of being a young person, kind of in the middle, I'd say that's me. Alright, so young people, raise your hands again nice and high. Yep, okay. So these are your experts in the room. Yeah. So whilst you might not be too far out of that young person bracket, young people have lived experience. It's different from when you were young, and so go to them, make your engagement approaches relevant, and listen to their perspective. Alright. So, building a case for engaging young people. Why should we work with them? Basically, currently about 41% of the global population is aged under 24 years. So they're increasingly a larger and larger representative part of the population. Young people are also more connected than ever before. They've got immediate access to global information, and they can access it in a way that resonates with them. They're also collaborating and contributing their opinions in ways that represent them. Engaging with young people, it's also good for business, whether you're in government or designing products. Young people can help government design relevant policies, and they can also make business more innovative. But this isn't actually why we should engage them. So, similar to the first IAP2 core value and Article 12 of the UN Convention for the Rights of the Child, young people have a right to be involved simply because they are affected by decisions that are being made for them. These are just some of the news articles recently from the last month, which refer to decisions made that directly impact young people. And particularly for those who are under the legal voting age, they have a lessened ability to influence decisions, which may affect them both as a member of the general public and as a group in general. This is related to systematic change, such as the defined voting age. It can also be related to disadvantage, which can affect the broader population as well. But really, young people are often not taken seriously, and they're also not invited into these conversations. However, as young people in the video have told us, the absence of an invitation to participate is actually not stopping young people from having a voice. They're creating their own channels through activism, through art, through fundraising, and in the case of the school strike for action on climate change, young people are demanding to be heard as a collective. And so I'd also like to draw your attention to Amelia Telford. She's the National Director and founder of SEED, which is Australia's only Indigenous Youth Climate Network, and Zainab Farah, who I actually saw perform recently, does amazing spoken word on the experience of being a Somali Australian young person in Melbourne. So what does this mean for us? We want to run, when we just want to run community engagement projects. It means that our role is to support young people's voices. So leverage off what is already happening. Think about what's already exciting and interesting for young people. The reality is that not all young people are the poster children for causes, and they're not all the school captain, so they might need more support than others to participate. Young people are also busy. They have varying schedules. They've got jobs, they're balancing rosters, and so run engagement at different times and allow people to participate in different ways, in ways that they choose. So reduce the barriers. Go to where young people are already hanging out, hold engagement events near public transport, and take young people for their time, and also just be flexible. Ask them what they need. Alright, so I'd now like to, we're going to introduce Seb, and so we're going to do an interview with Seb to understand some of his experiences being a young person.
I like how I'm set over here.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Alright.
I'm Sebastian. How you going? Thanks for coming today. It's great that you care about this stuff. So I am a young person, as you might be able to tell from my outfit, my face, all of those kind of things. The way that I'm wearing my thing is getting in the way. So that's covered over. Last year I co-designed my local council's youth strategy in Macedon Ranges, which is where I grew up. I'm from a little town called Gisborne in central Victoria, near Mount Macedon, if you've heard of that, near Hanging Rock. If you've heard the spooky tales. So that's me on the front cover, as you can tell. And then this year I'm working on a project at Youth Affairs Council of Victoria. The project is called Together, Building an Inclusive Youth Sector. So it's about supporting the mainstream youth sector to be more accessible and inclusive for young people with disability. And I'll tell you more about that later. But we might get started.
Yeah.
Have some questions, have some answers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to ask some questions, have a think, and there might be time after this segment.
So I guess kick us, yeah, have a seat.
Yeah.
I guess kick off and tell us about your experience in working for Nelson Shire.
I need to turn your mic on. So I just finished uni 2 years ago now, at the end of 2017, and was working in cafes and restaurants and stuff. Finished my arts degree. I was interested in policy and like what I could do in that space. Saw a job open up at my local council, which was called Youth Strategy Co-Designer. And I was like, hell yeah, like it's about policy, it's about young people, like I'm a young person, I know like what's happening. Applied and got an interview, which was really exciting. Rocked up and there were 10 other young people there. It was a group interview. And it was only then that I twigged that they wanted to hire as many people as possible, a group of young people, to work on developing a strategy together. So they were going to employ us casually, and they ended up employing 12 of us to design this strategy. So we led the whole process, like ran all the consultations, designed and delivered surveys and interviews and focus groups, got together about 9 months-ish through the project to review what we'd done, write this strategy in line with what everybody told us was important. We took it to council, they said, like, yes, absolutely, love it. And it's since been ratified and is now 1 year along, and some of the actions are starting to get done, which is really, really exciting.
When you walked into a room and or found out that there was 10 or 12 of you, did you feel like council might have plucked 12 young people to just represent all young people?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. The 12 young people that were hired were all from the area, which I think is really important. All went to school there, lived there. I've since moved out, but that's a whole other story. And I think amongst the group was quite diverse, but we weren't really hired to be representatives of our own, representatives of the communities that we belong to. We were there to engage with the community at large. So we had lots of chats about what kind of biases and experiences we each brought to the project, and then what we could do to work around them. So between the 12 of us, we consulted with like over 1,000 young people and representatives of the sector in the Shire Council, which was really cool. And through like the kind of networks we definitely got a diverse mix of voices in there as well.
And you said you engaged with more young people. Is it only young people that you're targeting? Is that your job?
That was not our job.
Yeah.
Good question. So we were organised by this worker called Dave, who was amazing. He was a really, really good guy. The best thing about what he did was just trusted us. He sent us off to all the meetings, ran all the surveys and stuff, and he just sat back and said, I trust you to do it, I know you'll do a good job, like off you go. That trust was phenomenal and like so meaningful for us as kind of, as our first real job, like my first job out of uni. The rest of the crew were younger, like 16, 17, 18. So you asked about whether we engaged with older people as well. He sent us off to all those meetings. So we met with representatives from schools, the principals, the counsellors, workers in the community health centres, workers in the libraries, big poll. And what he said was he could do those interviews and those consultations himself, but by sending us as young people instead, we'd have better conversations. The workers would be more honest, more direct, and I think importantly, more optimistic about what could happen with this new strategy, rather than complaining about what had happened or what hadn't happened, over the past, 5 years. So he just let us do it, gave us the reins, which was fantastic.
So we're going to talk a lot about empowering young people. So in terms of that role that Dave played, what was Dave kind of doing that, could the co-designers have been doing it? Yeah, should the young people have been running the whole thing?
It's a good question. When I started the job, I wanted to be doing Dave's job. I was like, I wanted to be in that role in the office, like whatever, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, working on it. But over time, I realised that he was doing the work that I totally wasn't interested in, didn't want to do. Like he was the one setting up meetings, sending emails, like advocating to upper management in council, like all the boring shit that I didn't want to do at the time, how old was I, 21? And it worked really well. Like he did all that stuff, like set us up to do it, which like all that boring stuff, and then we got to do the exciting things, which was talk to people in the community, dream about what the next 10 years could look like.
And are there any practicalities that, whether that was Dave's role to sort that out, but with working with a bunch of young people who do have really busy schedules? So there was 12 of you who were all on casual schedules.
Yeah.
So can you talk to the practicalities of that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't envy Dave's job because like there are 12 people, 12 different schedules, like half of us were at school. I'd just finished uni, but I was also working 3 other casual jobs at the time. I was saving up to go overseas. A couple of them were still at university as well. So like we had 12 different schedules and they also changed over the course of the project. So like he had to manage who was going to be available to go to this meeting or who was going to be available to go to this consultation. Like it must have been so hard, but between the 12 of us, we could do everything. We could cover everything.
You've moved on now to
Yeah.
a new role. So if you were to look back and do anything different in that role, what would you do? Have you had any reflections? What was hard? What was easy?
I think one of the best things that we did, not that I learned anything groundbreaking in it, but because of what it meant, was we did a whole day of training in facilitation in the deep democracy model, which is a really cool model if you want to check it out. And like we learned some stuff and we had some good conversations, learned some tools and ways to have conversations with other people. But the important thing was that we got that kind of like formal qualification, or not qualification, but like we've got told we could do it. So after that, we were much more confident to go out into the community and actually talk to people and work with the stuff that we've learned. If we were to do it again, I wouldn't mind more of those kind of things. Like I've still got that one line in my resume, did the training. It'd be nice to have a few more, but like we could do it totally without it. The only thing that I would change was going to more things, prioritising this work over my jobs at cafes and restaurants over the year. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So key learnings.
Key learnings.
Takeaways from
Key
that
learnings
role.
and takeaways. Yeah. What's that? Okay, key learnings and takeaways. The key learnings, we're talking about co-design. So my formal role was co-designer. Have you all heard of co-design? Yeah? Oh, I don't have to explain it then. The only thing I will say is that it looks different for every single project. There's no right way to do it. Like whatever you do is important. The important thing is about sharing power and decision making. So that was a brilliant foundation stone of the whole process. And then the other one is about mutual benefits. I talked a bit about the training we did. We were also paid for our time, which was really super important. And just getting the experience in that role set me up to apply for jobs like Dave's since.
So we had a little introduction to what Seb is doing now in his work, but we'll let you expand on that a little bit. And you've come to the other side. So you've started off as being engaged and now that's actually your role. So can you talk to that? So you are a young person engaging.
Yeah, it's a funny shift. Like I've changed from being that casual co-designer, working organised by Dave, to now I'm working as Dave. Like I'm the person that's coordinating a group of 5 young people with disability. They're originally going to be called project advisors. I advocated for that to change to co-designer because I think that speaks to that idea of shared power, shared decision making, and working together rather than them telling me what they thought should happen and then me doing it. So yeah, so we're working on this project. Did a lot of research with the youth sector about what they knew already, designed a training module, and now delivering it around the state. We delivered like 16 times and had some really, really brilliant results. So that's us, and that's us launching the kind of online resource that comes along with the training. Yeah. What else do you want to know?
So in that context, what does co-design look like for your current role?
Yeah. Co-design, it looks like in this current role, I have to be very flexible. So 2 of the 5 young people are at high school, so obviously can't come into the office, ever. The other 3 are at university and have changing timetables, so I work with them when it suits. We've got an online platform that we communicate on, called Band, that we share ideas and make decisions on together. Early on in the project, I went to a lecture at the University of Melbourne from this professor from the UK who was doing co-designed research with young people with disability in the UK. And I was like, this is like so weirdly similar, brilliant. So I went along with a couple of the co-designers, listened to his whole speech. He was talking about different models of co-design and the principles of co-design and how to do it, what the format was. Afterwards, we went up to chat to him and we told him what we were doing and what the plan was. And he said, oh, okay, great. So what model of co-design are you using? And we all just kind of looked at each other and smiled. And I was like, oh, we don't have a model. We're just doing it how it works for us. Just making it up as we go along. And he looked up at me and he said, yes, that's the best way to do it. It's he spent 2 hours telling us all these different ways of doing it, things you need to look at and frameworks, and he had this whole criteria grid of what you needed to do. And I was like, we're just making it up. And he said, yes, that's the total best way to do it.
That's your takeaway.
Yeah. But I think the important part was we had such short timelines for the project that we just had to get started. I didn't have time to spend months researching how to do it, setting up this the process. We just had to jump in and get started, which was really, really fantastic.
So in terms of that timeliness thing, the reality is work with young people. Often they need more time to do different things. So how does that kind of work within your context? You've got to deliver within a certain time, but you've got people with different needs.
Yeah. Timelines. Yeah. Well, we had to do this whole thing in 6 months. And it was just from the first day we were we're going to be flying by the seat of our pants the whole time. In terms of timeliness, I think it worked fine. They were super keen to keep up with the pace. And when I suggested, let's do 7 workshops before the end of June rather than 8, they were like, no, we've got to tell as many people as we can. So they were super eager to do it. I think it was kind of easier for them because every workshop had 1 or 2 of the young people, not all 5. So for each person, they only came to 3 or 4 out of the whole 8, but I was doing all 8, so I was flat out. But that was me keeping up with them, really, rather than them having to keep up with me.
So we talked this morning a little bit at the breakfast, like this, and you were telling us about doing one of those engagements on your own without the support of somebody.
Totally.
Yeah, can you indulge them in that story? Because I think it's a reflection of how we might not do it right sometimes.
Totally. So we had to deliver training, 4 in Metro Melbourne and 4 in regional Victoria. I did one by myself in Sale, which is in Gippsland in the east, about 3 or 4 hours drive away from Melbourne. And because of that reason, it was a drive away, we were staying overnight, none of the co-designers could make it. I booked it in, had to do it, so I went by myself, and it sucked. The best bit about the workshops is having the young people share their stories and their ideas and their reflections really candidly and honestly. At the beginning of the project, I was really hoping to give them the kind of formal training that I got when I was working with the council. So they could learn how to facilitate a workshop, learn how to tell stories and learn how to advocate really properly. It didn't happen because of timeline, and they just got stuck straight in. So they tell stories and facilitate differently from how I would, but that's the the best part. So all the feedback from all the sessions and workers saying like, this is brilliant, like so good to hear the stories and the experiences from the young people. And they're just telling it like it is, being who they are and representing their experiences and stories.
Do you have any key learnings or takeaways from this job?
Yes. So as well as the importance of co-design and mutual benefit that I talked about before, the key learning and one of the principles that I wanted to talk about is empowerment. So rather than empowerment being a thing that I have power and skills and experience that I give to you, and now you're empowered to do it yourself, that's like totally not what it is. Empowerment in this case was providing the opportunity and the space for these young people with disabilities to advocate to and tell their stories to the workers that needed to hear it. It was about bringing them together in this like context about training for them to share those kind of things. Like I basically took a step back and like the most important things were them telling their stories. Yeah, and also obviously paying them and supporting them through that process as well.
Alright, so we're just going to throw to the audience. Does anyone have any questions for Seb? Okay, we've got
We've got one that came through before.
Great.
very keen to
Alright.
Alright, we might start.
But you have to use your voice. Just louder. Yeah.
Sure. Love what you had to say. It's very insightful. I'm just wondering, in that first round of experience where you were part of the team of 12, you were busy schedules and you had your fabulous person managing all of that, how did you connect and stay motivated as a team? You were kind of all over the place. How did you have that sense of connectedness in what you were doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First thing that comes to mind is we had a private Facebook group. So everything that we did, all opportunities for interviews and engagements was on there. So we knew what was coming up. We could sign ourselves up to join in with whatever was happening. And I think as well as that, we had kind of reports. So like the people that did go to this interview with Big Pol or whatever, wrote up the notes, like this is what we talked about, this is what they had to say, this is what we thought about it, and then posted it so everyone could see. So we could keep in touch with what was happening, even if like we weren't able to physically be there. We had a few times where we all caught up when we reviewed the data and then when we wrote all the actions based on it. And they were like really exciting times. We booked out a massive room, like spent all day, had some food and stuff. So yeah, I think those things, like keeping in touch digitally, worked really well. Yeah.
Alright, we might go to Sarah.
Yeah. Disregard what on the
Very keen, yeah.
You're an amazing speaker.
Thank you.
Well
Thanks.
well, I'm taking notes on that. No, well done. But I had a question around the first, and that's the Ranges project. So after the youth strategy co-design process of consultation, were you then involved in action planning and implementation of the strategy? What came out of that? So how did they, and out of those 12, how many had opportunity to go on to that next step of actually implementing what came out of the
Yeah, great question. What happened was the team of 12 that wrote the strategy became the team of 12 that implemented the actions. So like we knew exactly what people meant when they suggested certain things, like we wanted a youth space, like whatever all the actions are. I had to drop off a little bit because I got part-time work in the city, moved out of the Ambassador Ranges. But that, like I think probably 10 out of the 12 continued on, and they hired a whole other group of people, of young people from the area to implement the kind of actions.
That's across the whole strategy.
That's across the whole strategy. Yeah, so it's a 10-year plan. It's amazing, but it took a lot of work to set up. So the council was originally going to hire a consultant from Melbourne to drive up and do it. They had a 3-month window of like, we've got to get this strategy done. And it took a lot of advocacy on behalf of the workers in the youth team to the council to say like, we've got this opportunity to do it better and cheaper. Like hiring 12 of us was so cheaper.
I love cheap days.
Yeah, but for real.
Dale said, I don't even know about. Like I'm around.
Yeah.
I don't even know about this. So it's not really publicly kind of shared about this process. But I think it would create a little more trust in the local community.
Absolutely.
It's more clear around how that process actually is developed.
Exactly.
The strategy and commitment to that co-design process. It's not very publicised. So
I think at the time we were so busy doing it that we couldn't tell anyone about it. But yeah, it was brilliant, and we ended up getting an extra, like council, once they were on board, they were super duper on board. So we asked for an extension of about 6 or 9 months to get it done properly. And yeah, that ended up working into this like brilliant 10-year plan. Other questions? We've got
We
time.
might just grab a question from the app and then move on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, don't know what's
It's
coming.
like the future. I love it.
Some really good questions on here, but Jane's chosen, do you know more, I really don't have glasses on. Do you know more now than when you started? I'm trying to be youthful. Than when you started, and at the time, do you think you were better informed than the 16, 17-year-olds who were still at high school?
Say that again. Do I know more than
Do you know more now than when you started?
Yeah.
And at the time, do you think you were better informed than the 16, 17-year-olds who were still in high school?
Okay, I can answer the second one straight away. Can I think about the first one while I'm answering the second one? Was I more informed? No. I think I was differently informed. Like, they had different types of experiences based on like different things that had happened in their life. Different schools that they went to, different people that they know. So our priorities were different, but I totally respect the experiences and the ideas that they brought to the table. Yeah, so I reckon rather than more or less, like definitely differently informed. The first part of the question was about, do I know more now? I'd like to think so, because that's how life works. Like, you go through life and you learn things, and you reflect on things. Yeah, so that was 2 years ago. Like, I'd like to think that I have learned some stuff and have, built on that. But like, we all do that over time. Like, when you start a new job, like, you learn as you go, and then once you've been doing it for 2 years, you're probably a bit better than you were before. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Don't let that be a cue for the older people in the room to think that they know everything now. We're going to start doing a little bit of work, and we had everybody put up your hands. So who actually identifies within that 12 to 25 group? I don't think there's any 12-year-olds, but is there anybody in that age group? Yeah? Or really close to that age group? So these guys are going to come around with badges. Like we said, these are your experts. So if we can ask you to host a table, you've got a worksheet on your table. So we've had a couple tables that have landed on challenges and haven't managed to move their way down the page. That's okay. I think youth engagement can be really hard. And look, I shouldn't say youth, and I did it again. So there's times where you're going to put your foot in it. I think the point is that you have to keep trying. So you have to keep learning. Appreciate that you're here today to listen to Seb and listen to what he has to say. A few of the things that I heard around the room were challenges, parents speaking on behalf of young people. Yeah. Having engagement in the park and ask young people about slides. The parents tend not to answer, it's great. Over-promising. So that's something that we don't want to do in any engagement, right? So you want to be really clear about what people are able to inform. Diversity of young people, which I think is great to see that that's a challenge, because that's again with everybody, but recognizing that one young person is not going to represent all young people. Empathy, which I think is interesting. Who had empathy on their challenges? Do you want to give us a little shout out about what you meant by that?
When I was around 20 years of age, I was coaching junior football, had a pretty troubled group of kids that I was working with, and basically to try and get their buy-in and to get kids back to training and to get them involved, I felt like I needed to understand what the challenges were that they faced. I was a tutor at the time as well, and most of them went to the same school that I went to school with. I got in touch with the school, I worked with their networks, worked with the parent group as best as possible, although I've also got parents here as being a problem. But really empathise with the situations that a lot of them were in. Everyone has their story to tell, including some of these young kids who might be coming to footy just to get away from home, or just need some support, or just need an outlet. But then they go back to a life that nobody knows about, and to be able to share that with them, to have them feel the connections and make it worthwhile coming.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so I think it's something that you really need to be prepared to have that role if that comes up. Yeah, and we did have one is just too hard, which hopefully when you leave the session today, you're inspired to think otherwise. So the successes I saw was co-creation. So somebody talked about festival being redesigned by young people. And another comment was offering a free service. So taking away that barrier was deemed a success. And measurements of success was ownership and trust. So young people had ownership over the process, and participation, which I think is an interesting one because is participating enough? So just because you were involved in something, maybe it wasn't a great process. So we need to make sure that we're actually checking with young people and allowing them to evaluate whether that participation was something that was worthwhile to them. So we'll just head over to a few more principles. Something that didn't come up that much I thought was interesting was timeliness, because we had talked about young people's problems with having free time to give. And remember that giving time is a give. So be considerate of the amount of time they have to give, offer lots of opportunities for them to give a weekend, or an ongoing opportunity, or maybe it's just a couple hours, and make that time somewhere where they can work with you. Transparency and feedback. So I think that touches on that challenge about being open and honest about what people are able to inform. So you do need to say, it's not on the table. And that's something we do with everybody, and you can be honest with people. Transparent. Young people are going to find out anything you're not going to tell them anyway, so you might as well be open about it. And feedback. This is with everybody. You want to commit to making sure that they know where their input has informed decisions, what that looks like. And self-awareness, which I think is something that we really need to do and be reflective when we go into engaging with young people. We actually had a facilitator not go to an engagement with young people because she deemed herself as maybe less in touch than some of our other consultants, and I thought that was really great of her. It was an engagement that she would love to deliver, but she said, I'm not the right person to do that. So be aware that you might not be the right person to deliver it, and ask the right people to get involved. Something we did. So we talked a lot about principles, but it's about how you do it, right? So the practicalities. Just a little bit about the boring stuff. We talk a lot about consent with young people, and consent is often held as a barrier. So the fact is, there's actually no legal age to consent when it comes to engagement. As long as the person has the mental capacity to understand what they're informing, you don't need a piece of paper. So don't let that be your barrier. Don't think you need parents to sign off on that. It's not a thing. Media, yes. So if you're going to use people's images, absolutely, but not consent. So you'd be aware of working with children's checks, and is it child safe checks are distinctive to every state. So look into those things before you engage, but don't use consent as a barrier. And we're just going to go to some hot tips for removing barriers. So we've talked a bit about that today. Were there any barriers that you thought that you hadn't sort of been aware of before you came in? Anybody? Was there anything that stood out to you? No?
Transport, the hand driving yourself to the session.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to see if somebody can take me there. So public transport's absolutely. Yeah. Valuing diversity. So I think something that we touched on with working with a group of young people, but that still doesn't make them all young people. We would never take 12 older people and assume that they're representative, right? So make sure that you understand that young people are diverse. Involving young people right from the start, and it's all about co-design, and be flexible to go back and say, okay, well, we thought that was the path we're going down, that's not working, let's rework that. Ask what young people get out of it, what's in it for them? Because if time is a give, they're giving you something. What's in it for them? And stay focused on skill building. So yes, paying people for their time is important, especially when you're dealing with, conflicts with jobs that do pay. What's the attractor? But skill building is important. And ask for help. So we wouldn't have been able to do all of this today if we hadn't had the involvement of 7 Yak Big. We're not the person to talk about it. So I think that's really important. So you can resource your local schools or youth groups or agencies like Yak Big to sort of put you in connection with those people. Get young people to recruit other young people. It's probably it would be harder for me to find a bunch of 20-year-olds than other people in that age group. Just ask, you know. Leave it to them. Promote. So that's important. I know that we don't sell our engagements. It's not what we're there to do. But if people don't know about it, how can they engage? So promote digitally on the formats that young people are using. You might have to do some upskilling there. We did. But also paper. So flyers in places that young people go to or posters. If it looks good, if it's something, have them design a poster so that it's something that they're a part of. It's going to be more attractive. Provide information in their language, which I think is a challenge. If you don't know how to do it, have a young person proofread your work. Does it speak to them? Is it something that they understand? Is it in a language that they are going to want to engage with? Be aware that a young person's voice is relevant everywhere. So we talk a fair bit about what are they interested in? What do they want to talk to? They can talk to anything. People select what they choose to engage in, right? So invite people to every conversation. They'll choose where they want to participate. Build passion and maintain interest. So young people are more likely to stay interested in a project if they're building relationships, they're building skills, if there's a feedback of how they're growing, some direct feedback, and also having fun. So it's about those relationships and making sure that it's fun. And fun is about making things youth-friendly. So we held a youth forum recently. There was a spoken word artist, there was a musician, there was
illustrators. We actually have a Snapchat filter made as well, which was all for me, so the young person definitely delivered all of that, and I just put your credit card down.
Yeah. So there's many ways, and if you're not familiar with those formats or how to do it, that's when you want to have your young people co-designing that, right? I could tell you more, but we actually have hot tips from our great young people, so let's do that instead.
Rather than just a tick the box sort of exercise, how can we meaningfully engage young people in whatever we want them to do, and in a process give them a skill, empower them, and actually give them an opportunity?
Recognise that young people have experiences that they didn't have in their own youth.
Older people can find out what it's like to be a young person nowadays by just taking the time to actually really listen and hear it from young people. Just sitting down and hearing it non-judgmentally.
Because we are the experts in our own lives, we know what life is like for us. We have lived experience of the things that directly impact us.
So yes, it may be hard if someone is presenting an idea that is difficult or different to what the organisation had in mind, but if you are truly and meaningfully including young people or anyone for that matter in the process of designing a product or advocating for something, you need to be listening to that community and incorporating that into that idea.
I think having events that are run or managed or have an input from young people is really important, and having them be inspired by the young people. So having meetings with them beforehand to organise, or having them have positions on the day to run things at the event.
If young people are digital natives generally, we understand how to do communications quite intuitively. It helps that I've studied, but additionally. And so when older people are like, hey, we need someone to live tweet this, or we need someone to comment on this, it's always great to get a young person to do that.
I think the best way to help older people understand what's really changed is to try and involve them, or for them to get involved themselves in some of these new things like technology, or just adapting to the change themselves and seeing what that brings up for them.
Accessibility is so important. There's so many different people in our communities, and everyone needs different things to feel comfortable, and by having a safe space, they're able to share their opinions and what they need.
Respectful consultation of young people and other marginalised groups always involves paying them first.
Actually recognising them for that contribution. It can be paid, it could be through other means, whether it's skills, vouchers, etc., but really making sure that people are rewarded for the contribution. It's great that people volunteer their time, but that only means that a specific demographic of people who are able to access, who have the money and resources to do that, can actually help. Whereas if you're actually making that opportunity available by paying people, it means you can actually access the entire community.
Co-design, which is where you bring young people on board from the start of the process and you let them walk through what questions you need to ask them and their community, and make sure you keep consulting back and saying, like, does this work for you? Is this still respectful? Is this process working for you? That way nobody ever gets left behind.
We really need to truly listen to young people and what they actually want, and actually provide a framework to actually make that possible, or if not, being transparent about that.
Especially with issues like climate change and rights for all of these marginalised groups in society, older people feel like they need to hang on to the power that they have, and they've got to recognise that at some point you've got to pass the baton and stop being so scared of us. We've got some real things to offer.
If you're looking at new ideas that have long-term potential, that's where young people have an incredibly huge role to play, and where if we're going to take action on some really fundamental challenges affecting the country and the world, then we really need to be listening to young people, because policies ultimately affect young people the longest. And by definition, that means they affect young people the most.
They say better than we do.
So that's, what was it?
Yeah, we've actually got about 10 minutes. So before we get to wrap, we might do some more questions. That sounds good. I'll also point you towards this on your table. Don't leave here without this, because this runs through everything we've done. It has the principles, so you can hang this in a poster so you don't forget. It has the principles, it has all of the hot tips, and it also has a checklist. So before you go out to engage with young people, it's a really good set of questions to ask yourself whether you're ready to do that. Right? You happy to take some questions?
Yeah,
Do we
go
want to
on.
do them here, or do we want to do from the screen? I've got 10 minutes. We're having a little time. Did we start late?
12:30, we did start late.
Sure. Maybe we'll take 1 or 2 questions. Cool. Any from the room, or should we go to the screen? Screen. Here.
Okay. I was just wondering how engaged with your local council you were already when you applied for the job, and also where did you find was it on Seek? Like, how did you know to apply for this position?
Yeah, it was actually on the council website, which I kind of just periodically check just to see what's going on. I was involved with council when I was in like year 8 and year 9. I was as part of the Freezer group, which is a group of young people that put on music events for other young people in the Shire. It's a Victorian government initiative. So I kind of knew some workers, and the team leader, Pauline, is one of my best friend's mum. So like that's just what happens in like a country town. Like everybody kind of knows everybody. Yeah.
We just made a comment that everybody needs a step.
Nice.
Well.
Yeah.
I mean, how do people identify people like you who are passionate? Like, what does it look like for, I don't know if people get in touch with it, because you're obviously showing a lot of initiatives going on the website and doing all that stuff. Do you think through some of the work that you're doing, like building that rapport in the young people helps to identify more people like you to come to the top? And what does it look like for us to, identify more people like you who are passionate?
I think there are. I'm not special. Like I'm just pretty normal. There's lots of people like me out in the world, and like they're already doing stuff on their own terms in a way that suits them. So I guess if you wanted to find more people like me, like you could give me a call, or you could listen and see what other people are doing out in the world. Like people that are doing amazing activism, people are like doing stuff, being engaged and advocating for the change that they want to see. Yeah, I don't know if that doesn't answer your question,
I
but
think maybe like providing the opportunities, because it sounds like this path that you've been on has been through the council identifying this opportunity and having the goodwill to give young people, employment and casual work. So maybe it's actually about that they're out there, but you just need to provide the opportunity.
provide space, yeah. And it took those adults working in council to advocate for the space, seeing the value in it, recognising that young people have stuff to offer and things to say, and yeah, making sure that that space was available and that we could be part of it.
I think also recently, from a practitioner perspective, we were running a youth forum to represent a particular region in Victoria. I know initially we were kind of struggling to get young people to sign up, even though we were kind of doing the socials, doing the Eventbrite, but we just weren't getting we just weren't getting the numbers. And the really kind of big turning point was we actually went to councils, went to kind of the youth area, and got connected in with a lot of kind of the youth juries and things, and pretty much as soon as we hit those people, then they started disseminating out to their networks, and that's when we started co-designing. So they were a really great place for us to start.
And on that as well, but do we also think as a sector though that it's actually about a shift in the way that we see young people and the way that we see empowerment, agency and autonomy? Because I think it's a cultural shift in the sector, and I've come from the health sector now in education, but there's a real shift that's needed in terms of how we actually empower young people and how we see your contribution to our organisations as being not just a tick box, actually you can do and create and make amazing things for our organisation. I think we all have a role to advocate for the meaningful engagement of young people in what we do.
Totally. The biggest barrier that I've come across, and this is reflected in the other young people that I've talked about, the biggest barrier to stop us participating, engaging, whatever the word is adults don't take us seriously. Older people don't take us seriously. So why would we sign up for your Eventbrite, sign up, come to your meetings, come to the ways that you want to hear from us, if we've heard and we've been told and we're experiencing over and over again that we're not being taken seriously. So it's engaging with us on our terms, meeting us where we're at.
I might just take your question and then we'll
I just wanted to add to that we've got all of these grad programs around the country, boys from organisations, got some of the best universities in the world, in this country. So, there's young people sitting in front of you in your organisations. Engage with them who are world-class education, and they can help co-design these plans with you and go into the community. So you've got the tools really.
For sure.
And I think also in your organisations or just young people kind of in your lives, step up and offer to mentor people, take them for a coffee, and just have a listen to their experience of either being in your organisation or being in the field. And that's a really seemingly easy way to kind of start a discussion. Yeah.
And reach out as well. I'm from Youth Affairs Council Victoria, which is the peak body for young people and the youth sector. There's one of us pretty much in every single state, and they have all the frameworks, all the tools, they support you to do youth engagement, youth participation well. So that's Youth Affairs Council Victoria. There's Youth Action here in New South Wales. There's one in every state. So yeah.
And there's also some references in your toolkits as well. So you can also start there and get in contact with us as well. And more networks you need. So would you like to do a quick wrap up as well?
Before you start, Sam, we just want to know that you all have badges on your table. So if you put your badges on, we can find you later for a chat as well. It would be really great. Perfect. If you don't have badges, find us for some badges, but they're there. You just get to wrap up.
Cool.
Thank you.
Alright. So just some key messages, key things to think in mind over when you're doing your work, you go back to your organisations. Recognise that young people are already standing up. Recognise that young people are already doing things and wanting to create the change that they want to see in the world. Meet them where they're at. Go to where they are. Listen to them. You should be engaging with young people. I heard the other day that this sector considers young people as hard to engage. Is that right? Which is I just find that so strange because I'm hearing so much from young people every day about the changes they want to see in the world, the things they're doing to make that change. And to hear that this sector considers it, puts them in their too hard basket is so, I don't know, interesting. You should be engaging with them, you should be hearing from them, and you can. Hopefully today we've kind of given you that confidence, some of the tools, but just the impetus to actually go and do it. and just keep trying. Like, you might not get it right the first time. I didn't. No one does. That's the point of practicing and getting better over time. So yeah, if you haven't started, absolutely do it. There's resources, there's the checklist, the principles. There's also the YERP, which is a resource that my organisation has made. It used to be called the Youth Engagement Resource, something P Project or something. We chucked the acronym in the bin because it sucked, and now it's just called the YERP. So YERP. If you look it up, yeah, there's some really brilliant stuff in there. But yeah, like, you can do it. I believe in you.
Thanks, Sarah.